Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. Today we're going to look at the FarSight Studio table, Doctor Who. I think there's a subtitle there, but first I wanted to talk about Cactus Canyon here. Apparently, this table didn't have its full skills code finished, which makes a lot of sense. I imagine a lot of tables, even though this is a Williams-Bailey table, I imagine a lot of tables as they were approaching the end of the pinball lifetime, I guess, the death of pinball at the end of the 90s. I bet a lot of tables did not have finished code. And we have been seeing all throughout the 90s, or we did see throughout all the 90s, there was a decent amount of versions of code that were shown, particularly if we went into like the operator mode and checked it out. What's interesting though is that somebody out there made an expansion ROM to it called Cactus Canyon Continued that added a whole bunch of stuff to the game, and that I think probably would have made it play a lot better. For instance, this thing here that I was looking at that just looked like a light to me, apparently that's supposed to be a toy that looks like a beer. So you're drinking like a full beer. Theoretically, you're supposed to hit that multiple times in the continued code, and it will reverse the flippers from left to right. That totally didn't happen there in the main code. Like, they didn't really change anything on the main table, although they did add a toy in between the two cactuses of a buzzard, which was interesting. And with the Cactus Canyon Continued code, they make references to some of the better tables. And in a weird way, since this table also didn't sell that much, let's see, how many were made? 903 units. If they were able to get the licenses right for the new code and remake this table, basically this would be like a brand new table for most people, because most people would not have played this table in the wild. And that's an interesting idea that was never really embraced at all, clearly, because you could do that just going backwards. Stern could do that, and FarSight Studio could be changing and improving codes and making mods. When we see this in video games, though, there is kind of a funneling of mods. Like, there's lots of mods for Skyrim because it's easy to make mods, and because there's a large fan base of Skyrim. There's probably not so many mods for Impossible Mission 2 for the NES, where arguably that, if you were to pick a random ROM, that ROM being hacked and modded probably would be a very good candidate to make changes, because it's not a very good game. Same would be true for like E.T. for the Atari. You could make major ROM hacks to that and try and improve that game. But yeah, there's, suppose we should do an experiment here and just top into 1990s Diner, and then see if we can go into the operator mode, and we're just trying to see what version of the code would be in this 1990s era table, if we can get it to say that. Alright. Music text, music off. Display test, sound test, all lamps, single lamps, glow codes. This is probably not the right table to use this, to test this on. Nope, here we go. Domestic revision for ID 01 1990, September 7th. Yeah. So this would be revision 4, or at least the 4th version, with the first instance of that code. and I imagine you can't change that by default and just have a whole different number of ROMs on an old pinball table. But arguably, that would be another thing that emulation and Pinball Arcade could have done, is it could have had their own custom ROMs and custom code sets for tables like this, and then thrown out some new content that nobody had seen before, which that kind of is what Pinball FX 2 and 3 tried to do, is that they tried to make some of the older tables classic, and then they'd put in new animations. But I'm not sure that it is anything different than just a visual swap, even for Pinball FX3. I don't know if going into the new and enhanced version actually changes how the game plays. And certainly, all kinds of tweaks could have been made to lots of these tables as far as improving how they play and just making them more fun. Some of those can be somewhat adjusted by giving more balls or giving more time on the ball saver feature or lowering scores for replays, but the idea of a whole new mode would be great. Certainly you feel some of that, like even with Harley Davidson, where it just doesn't feel like there's enough of a mode, or even worse, you get to like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, where the modes that are there just need to be dumbed down and made easier.
You're getting old, Doctor.
I'm as old as time.
So this is FarSight/Williams 2016, which is a weird collaboration for Doctor Who, or BBC Doctor Who Master of Time. And so there you have Missy, the female reincarnation of the Doctor, the Doctor's enemy, the Master, one of his main bad guys. And we'll look at the table and see that this is the Doctor that came out after the first 4 Doctors of the reboot reincarnations had happened. And there's this funny thing about Doctor Who, I think in particular, that the more content they make in the reboots, the better the older content looks. So that they just keep lowering the bar and lowering the bar and lowering the bar. So I'm a lot more nostalgic for this Doctor, who's kind of an old guy and doesn't really do much for the character, in my opinion. And I really didn't like him playing the Doctor. I don't think he's a terrible actor or anything. But I just don't think he was well suited for the Doctor, considering the types of Doctors we had seen in the 3 previous iterations, where it was young Doctors. And his stories and the plot and main thing around him, the Impossible Girl, Clara Oswald, I believe is her name, was just not a well-written arc and didn't get resolved to my satisfaction. That being said, it wasn't until pretty much his entire run had ended that I finally was just done with Doctor Who and no longer interested. And a big part of that also is just that BBC America really dropped the ball as far as making it easy to watch Doctor Who, and as far as recording Doctor Who episodes and having them ready to air. Let's go ahead and read this. Doctor Who Master of Time 2016, so 5 years previous from this recording. Missy is back with a brand new army, and only you can help the Doctor in stopping her. Realizing the Doctor was one of Gallifrey's was the key to Gallifrey's eventual return. Factions across the universe aligned themselves with Missy in order to stop the Time Lords from coming back. See, and that's basically the same story plot line as the Silence, but Missy was not involved with the Silence at all. She wasn't even in the series as an actress at that point. If anything, the introduction of the Silence which is this like religious organization spinoff that was trying to stop them, stop the Doctor. That all kind of happened years earlier, so they're just like taking the same idea and reusing it, which is weird. Realizing his time is short, the Doctor has called upon his most recent incarnations and enlisted you as his newest companion to do combat with this group of familiar adversaries, revisit old friends, battle against terrifying villains and monsters, travel across space-time with the TARDIS, and confront Missy once and for all, save the universe with attack eyebrows. Come on, Pudding Brains, what are you waiting for? And see, these are sayings that if they were supposed to be slogans, I never caught them. Alright, so yeah, they wanted to bring in, obviously, and interesting, there's no control option here. Even though we have Pro menu, there's no open the control panel and change settings, which that really makes no sense at all. Not one bit. You would think that there'd be all kinds of things you should be able to tweak and twist on this. So theoretically, this is a fake pinball table that never existed. Apparently they imagined it with yellow flippers, and it must be a push button start. Here you have a sonic screwdriver that doesn't look like very close to any of the real sonic screwdrivers. What's funny here is it still says for amusement only, even though we've seen some tables kind of feel like they are pushing towards that they were pushing towards embracing gambling with the casino game. And then here you have bits of text that would be on the TARDIS, which doesn't really explain enough as far as how to play. So the only real explanation is there. So we've got the Weeping Angels, and then I think one of those two is called the Solantar, and Weeping Angels are good enemies. These like monsters, rubber monsters looking things aren't very good or well written. These potato headed characters aren't very well written or good. Here you have the gray aliens that were big parts of the Silence. Here you have the man, I should know the name of those. Daleks. Here, I cannot make that out at all. I have no idea what that even is supposed to be. And see, you have the Daleks and the Cybermen. So something in between the Daleks and the Cybermen should be a very recognizable character. But I cannot tell. I just visually cannot tell what that's supposed to be. Let's look at some other arts. See, this guy I think was a companion with the Doctor, and this is the Doctor here. And here you have a older iteration of the Doctor too. Also, he was like the first Doctor in the reboot. Neither one of their faces are drawn well. And then you have the War Doctor, who who'd never considered himself a doctor, so he was a reincarnation. What do they really call it? Regeneration of the Doctors after the first run and the American movie, but before the reboot, which would have been this guy. And he was a companion for, I think, a fairly brief time. I have no idea what that ship is in the background, but it doesn't kind of matter. Here you have, I have no idea who that's supposed to be. Like, that's not, That's not a doctor that I recognize, unless he was the Western movie actor. And then here you have like the previous reincarnation that's probably the best and probably the second best in the reboot. And then you have the doctor's wife, and she's not even drawn well. Let's see. These skeletons were kind of like a organic virus or something that would take over the suits that people were wearing and eat them from the inside out. So maybe that's what that is supposed to represent. And that's in the library. And see, that would be the first episode that the doctor's wife met the doctor and hung out with this doctor and this doctor and this doctor. She never met him or him. But she kind of plays a big role until they kind of wrapped it up, and then it kind of stops playing a big role. On the left here we can see spell doctor, and we've got a sonic screwdriver with another sonic screwdriver above it, and it seems like it's just kind of magically floating here. And that's going to be the real question here. As we look up at this upper play field, there is kind of nothing here. So unless things start magically appearing, you've got a massively empty play field with a upper left flipper and an upper right flipper. And then you just have the TARDIS that you can land here and land here. You've got 3 pop-up bumpers with colorful Daleks, and then you've got weeping angels at every edge of every shot. There's a sinkhole here. Is there a sneak shot there? Maybe. You can't even really see that. There's just this like black path that I guess goes all the way up into this area. It's so dark. And then while build your fury, which some of the doctors are kind of furious, but some of the doctors kind of aren't. Yeah, there's just like absolutely nothing on this table. Now, here's a question. 2016. Why does it still look like a dot matrix display at all? It really does not make any sense there in that way. It should, at this point, be a real LCD screen, theoretically, all over this. And see, Missy is here, and it almost certainly feels like it was BBC's instructions to have Missy be the bad guy instead of her regeneration before then as the Master, which I feel like the actor who played the Master before then did a really good job, and I wouldn't have minded keeping him around more. Although in all fairness, I also wouldn't have minded keeping him around for a lot longer. And unfortunately, BBC people just don't work for as long as they should. Yeah, it is the walking skeletons in the exosuits, or the organics. Those enemies literally showed up in a 2-parter episode with the introduction of the doctor's wife. She has no point. There's no reason why that should be on the table. And almost certainly the reason why it is on the table is because the writer of Doctor Who at the time created them as an enemy, and they wanted to rehash them and reuse them for maybe licensing, maybe just propagation reasons. They also created the Weeping Angels and the Silence, which explains why those 3 are in the front, where the Daleks have been around for a long time, and they make a lot more sense. These are also an older alien species, and seems like they just kind of needed a different mode, and the Cybermen are an older species, and I'm not sure if the potato-headed people, they are enemies, but one of them is not an enemy, the warlike race. Yeah. I am definitely not impressed so far. And then flyer-wise, let's see if BBC and Williams and FarSight does any better on their flyers. It's a little clean, so I guess I should show that off and say, yeah, yay to that. It probably is spelling the doctor's name in Gallifreyan over there on the standing targets for Doctor Who fans, but yeah. So our standard goals are to start a multi-ball battle, complete Angels, which is probably just hit all the Angels, score Fury, score Who, WHO, and collect the Spoilers bonus. Which, spoilers was a thing that the Doctor's wife would say. And see, theoretically, I have a skin here where I could play as the TARDIS, as the pinball. I have no interest in doing that, though. Let's start playing. So, interesting. It feels like an analog thing, but it's not working like an analog thing. No time to waste.
Spoilers.
See, so there you heard her say spoilers. Interesting.
A good hunter waits.
Now we're in Act 2. Interesting. Go, right. And it seems like it has lit up the playfield slightly different. Well, I'm not doing very good so far.
A good hunter waits.
There's definitely some callouts here that are problematic. They're just going to get annoying. See, the green thing in the top left is an indication of the
we have to catch Missy.
Like life or battery. So there I just got the spoilers bonus. The life or the battery of the exosuits that the germs get in and eat the people outside.
Is up to.
Interesting that they're gonna mention Davros and not even have him. Davros actually in the reboot hasn't shown up very much.
Hands up!
I feel like we would have better audio.
We have to catch Missy. Hands up!
Interesting, the door's open.
Are you coming? All aboard the crazy train.
For my next trick.
Inherently, part of the problem with any Doctor Who table is that you run a high chance of it not being the Doctor Who people like.
Let's go, all right?
But the previous Doctor Who adjusted that by having all of the old Doctors. Maybe kind of a boring table, but not amazingly boring.
It's Vashta Narada.
I don't even remember what Vashta Narada is. It's some planet.
Hurry along, we have to catch Missy. A shadow that never leaves.
Apparently that's the Fury bonus.
Let's go, all right?
Part of the thing about the Doctor Who reboot, I'll say, at least from my experience, is that almost every episode, if it's a good episode, completed Angels,
come along.
Almost every good episode is just kind of this constant. So it has pop-up Cybermen targets, but that they legitimately popped up. It wasn't just that they magically appeared, which I'll take that.
9.
This is one of those tables, though, that is all about just sitting up, hitting the upper playfield. But yeah, I think a good Doctor Who reboot episode is one that's kind of always playing music, always kind of moving, and always just full of action. I never really thought that Doctor Who should be like Star Trek The Next Generation, where you just have a lot of talk and logical conversations or politics. That's kind of not what Doctor Who is. Doctor Who is a kid show, and it's important to recognize this. It is designed for kids first and foremost, and if there happens to be some fanboys out there that also appreciate it, that's fine. But as far as I think BBC cares, and as it's funded, it is a kid show. Maybe with some scarier monsters than what you normally see,
Is the
and
new sexy.
arguably maybe there's a problem there where
I'll go see what Davros is
you
up
have
to.
some episodes of Doctor Who too scary for its target audience. But at the end of the day, it's a kid show, so it should just be an action kid show. See, it's just crazy that the music is not playing at all. Vastra Narada. Oh, those are the Vastra Narada. Alright, well then let's start with the Weeping Angels, if we can select. And there's not really a way to have the Weeping Angels ability represented in pinball greatly, because if they touch you, they take you back in time and suck the life out of you by removing your potential. But they turn to stone if they're absorbed by anybody or anything, including themselves.
Need a few quarters?
And honestly, they're better designed than you would think for that single gimmick. I think it's weird that only one door opens. I think it's weird that we are effectively starting multi-ball so easily. I don't know if I like half of these sound effects. I don't know what the baby sound effect is.
Hostiles remaining. 7.
Honestly, I think a lot of the better Doctor Who episodes also don't center around the big time enemies, and actually the big time enemies are just there because
Fancy my
you
new
need
Cybermen.
There we go, we start multi-ball.
Upgrade this.
They eventually got to the idea that Cybermen are just this eventuality that will naturally occur given enough time. So they aren't like a single species. They come from a single timeline or
We need to get back to the TARDIS. We have to catch Missy.
or planet. I think some of the Cybermen did have time travel ability, whereas the Daleks are from a single
Come along.
planet and
No time to waste.
were genetically engineered as a species of war, for war.
Specialist lit. Hands up!
Whereas Cybermen are just the idea that eventually technology and medical needs will occur enough that some species will turn themselves into cyborgs, and those cyborgs will eventually lose their humanity. I feel like in a real-world pinball table, little knockdown toys like this would get broken really, really fast. So they do leave themselves with an interesting experiment here where you're making a digitally only table. I assume it was digitally only. And so you can do something that you normally wouldn't.
It wasn't me who ran, Doctor.
And that's ridiculous that they have them say resistance is futile, because that is a Borg
A
call
good
out,
hunter waits.
not a Doctor Who call out. So they made a Star Trek reference in Doctor Who, and I'm sure no Doctor Who fan is going to be happy with that.
Dead is the new sexy.
I don't like half of these
I'll
lines
go
of
see what
dialogue.
Davros is up to.
This really doesn't feel high action at all. It feels boring. Do we have... Did we get all the standard goals? No. Need to score who? Spell who, shoot the W, then the H, then the O. Okay, this is very similar to the previous Doctor Who table. If anything, a lot of this table is very similar to the previous Doctor Who table. And I don't know why you would emulate that table, because I don't think that was a good design in the first place.
All aboard the crazy train. Come along. Hands up!
I wonder if I should nudge when I'm looping behind the TARDIS.
Need a few quarters?
Let's see. Did we try the Zargons? Let's try that.
Let's go.
Zygons. Not Zargons, Zygons.
Fantastic!
So I think to get this started, we've got to get the W first. Yeah, it seems like the Weeping Angels are the making that baby sound.
Very good.
Which I don't think that's the right sound effect to use. Or maybe the sound effect doesn't connect to anything.
Rounds remaining.
We have to get past the Cybermen.
12. 9.
I can certainly see that this would have been the first season in which Missy was introduced, in which she turned
I expected more.
humanity into a new Cybermen army, and then Danny Pink, a character that they did not write well at all, manages to kind of save the day, and the Doctor kind of doesn't even win that battle. I'd say Danny Pink and the companion, he's like the unwanted boyfriend of Claire Oswald.
To hell or to heaven.
It wasn't me who ran, Doctor.
That's W. So how much do I have to hit now to get... Is there a timer for H? Or can I just hit H as long as I can keep the ball in play?
For God's sake! I've come to help.
Hurry along.
Yeah.
We have to catch Missy.
Yeah, the whole plot of that season was people were dying and then getting
keep it
their
locked for a
bodies
reason.
and their consciousness upgraded,
Special is lit.
and they were doing deceptive presentation of images where characters would die and they would talk to Missy as if Missy was God.
Come along.
When at the end of the day it was just revealed
Hurry
that
along. We have to catch
at the
Missy.
point of near death, people's consciousness were getting uploaded into a giant database.
For the next trick?
There's the
Let's
Doctor
go.
Who.
All right. It's a time machine, not a miracle worker.
Why did that
Try
not
the key
count?
next time.
Get out!
I don't know why I wouldn't have gotten that goal. I swear I had W lit, and then I did the H, and then I shot the O. That upper left flipper sucks. It needs something to slow things down. The ball seems to kind of appear in the wrong places sometimes. So I guess we are in the Weeping Angel mode.
Keep your eyes on it.
What are we even trying to
A
light?
shadow that never leaves.
Like we've got these 5 lights on the table that I don't know what they really represent.
More.
The ones in orange.
Dead is the new sexy.
So they've completely eliminated the
I'll
idea
see
of
what Davros is
companions
up to.
just to make you a companion. You don't seem like you're going to different time zones in this table. You don't seem like you're going to different planets or locations. It's just a complete insult to what Doctor Who is as a base concept that would really be appreciated by most people to have the ability to go to 6 or 7 different
From hell's
planets.
heart, I stab at thee.
Hands up! Hurry along! We have to catch Missy!
I don't even know where that quote comes from.
No time to waste.
I feel like that it might be from the Labyrinth.
I help where I can. I will not
Let's
fight.
go, all right?
I'm the doctor.
See, and you can't be playing as Clara Osgood or Oswald, whatever her name
Professor
was.
Riversong.
Hands up!
Man, that shot just totally can drain
Good
down the
hunter
center.
waits.
Why not just make the TARDIS bigger
Hurry
if you're
along,
gonna
we have to
make
catch
it
Missy!
so focused on the table? And why not just remove half the shots? Arguably, the
Talk about 50 Shades of Grey.
Fast can you run?
the shots here. Let's see, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
I
6,
expected more.
7, 8, 9 shots on this table that you have to get good at. When the table should have about 7. So it would make a lot of sense if that center field was just a spinning in the air Time Lord TARDIS. And if you had it on a spinner, on a wire, floating in the air, and every time you hit this wire, the TARDIS would spin in a wonky way. That would be a very cool visual that you could actually physically accomplish. And
Need a
then
few quarters?
what would be really cool is if there was a way that
Let's
wire
go, all right?
would retract and put it down on the center of the
I'm the
field,
doctor.
so that then you could
Come
open
along.
it up and shoot a pinball into it for maybe a 2-ball
From hell's
multi-ball.
heart,
Even
I
now,
stab at thee.
yeah, the only way it has a 3-ball multi-ball is because it's sinking the ball lower. You see
Hurry
that
along,
glass
we have to catch Missy!
there where the ball's rolling out? I have no idea what.
Position
I
healers.
can't remember the reference there. And see, yeah, it's like let's just take a moment and exit here. Like I don't even care about the game that much. Like 2016, so 5 years ago. Yeah, you're pretty much gonna forget most of what happened in a Doctor Who season in 2 years, even if it is one of those periods where there is a long drought of Doctor Who, which that definitely happens. They're very committed to having Christmas movies, and then the Christmas movies often are a 5+ month buffer between
Hurry along, we have
the
to catch
last
Missy!
regular episode and
Let's
the
go, all
next
right?
new episode, regular episode.
Do we have a plan?
But yeah, I don't remember most of this, and none of it's relevant.
No time
Like
to
they've
waste.
they put a whole different writer in charge, and he's put his whole different spin on Doctor Who. To the point, this is only slight spoilers for the new season, which honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets written out of canon eventually, and I imagine a lot of fans don't even now consider canonical. just out of spite.
I don't have anything to lose.
But at the current moment,
Spoilers.
with the new series, the Doctor Who is no longer Gallifreyan. He is now some other species that was found by the Gallifreyans.
expected
Someone
more.
who had regenerated hundreds of times. They made a big deal about the new regeneration in the new season being a female, the first female Doctor ever. And then they undid that by saying, oh no, actually, as a child he regenerated hundreds of thousands of times as he was being experimented on and tortured by a Gallifreyan Doctor. So that isn't the first female Doctor. If anything, there's also another female character that may have been the first female adult Doctor.
A good hunter waits.
Wow. Few sound effects on top of each other. The Time Lords, kind of a little more represented as good guys in the old series, but with the reboots, they pretty much firmly established or hinted at until they firmly said it directly that the Time Lords were power mads, like authoritarians, and they will not do the kind
I
or
expected more.
nice thing in a lot of scenarios. Which you kind of need that if you're going to have one side of Daleks and Cybermen in this eternal time war against the Gallifreyans. Like, none of the companions in the new series really have anything to do with any of the companions of the old series, and that has been very consistent. That companions just come and go, and they really don't matter, and they don't have any real story to themselves. The Doctor's wife is about the only companion that was never actually a companion that mattered.
Hurry along. We have to
And
catch
then
Missy.
theoretically, some of the companions are the mother of the Doctor's wife, so they would kind of matter, but they were pretty much written out of the story too, so they really don't matter anymore.
I call myself the Doctor.
Mother and father.
Come along.
Spoilers.
of the Doctor's wife, so I'm sure other changes have happened. I think there's been very little to no emphasis on any of the old enemies, so I'm sure the Daleks might show up.
And for my next trick,
Once again, we're trying to spell who.
Sweetie.
A good hunter waits.
Let's go, all right?
I think what you don't
No
do
time to waste. Come
in
along.
making a Doctor Who pinball table is I think you don't do anything new.
Very good.
Unless you've got
Hurry along. We have to catch Missy.
a writer that actually cares, and from the Doctor Who TV production, who has some kind of idea that the BBC can't possibly afford to shoot, and he's really passionate about it, which, in all fairness, I'm sure there's plenty of stories like that. I think you just do the greatest hits, and that's kind of what this table is trying to do, but it's not really doing it well.
I'm a Time Lord.
Hurry along. We have to catch Missy.
For this time, and for this
Come
being a
along.
digital table only, it would make so much sense to have footage from the TV show just show
No
up
time
on
to
the
waste.
screen, and just run as many remember berries as possible. That's kind of all Doctor Who is anyways, so it would make so much sense there.
Ta-ta.
There seems to be no way to regenerate in this mode, so there's just different
Let's
lines
go,
from
all
different
right?
doctors
No time to waste.
at no point. there is like a 50th anniversary special movie for Doctor Who where all 13 of the Doctors theoretically get together, and I think that's a pretty good story, which puts this concept of just having a couple of the Doctors, it really puts that idea to shame.
Come along. Hands up!
Do I have to hit the H again? I think it is really a 3-hit combo. I think you have to actually hit the W, then the H, then the O.
I'm not anyone.
Instantly in a row without hitting anything else. But then it doesn't really set you up for that.
Are you coming? All aboard the... Remember, don't blink. Let's go, all right?
See, I've almost gotten all of the
Come along.
all of the villains lit.
And for my next trick,
But what does that
Professor
really mean?
Riversong.
Am I collecting, bringing all the villains together?
fantastic.
And since these are just like little short call-outs, you're missing any good dialogue that would have ever been written for a Doctor Who episode.
How fast can you run?
Hurry along. We have to catch Missy. No time to waste.
Honestly, if this was based on the Family of Blood
Too long I have stayed.
two-part episode, that would make more sense to me.
Hands up!
Finally.
I help where I can. I will
Let's
not
go,
fight.
all right? Come along.
This is too high scoring a
I
table.
call myself the Doctor.
I don't have anything to lose.
See, we're getting just a single sentence of dialogue. Well, I would almost be happy if just it played an episode from beginning to end.
Hands up!
A good episode, and your shots did nothing to affect the video. And that would be a weird split, certainly, to say, well, we're just going to play Doctor Who because we know you like Doctor Who. So, why try to improve something that we know we can't improve?
Ta-ta. For now. I expected more.
And then it's just taking forever to
Hurry along. We have to catch
decide
Missy.
to end the game.
Dead is the new sexy. I'll go see what Davros is up to.
Almost certainly this is just being hamstrung by BBC and the writers department. And this is a kind of great example of why you really don't want to license a product if you don't. In a lot of cases, it's just too much work. So, wizard goals would be complete the Doctor targets, score Starving Angels, score 53 O-ring lamps. I wonder why 53 was picked, and then score a 300 million Missy jackpot, which I don't think we've gotten a jackpot once, and then defeat 7 villains on one ball, which that's pretty insane. But it also kind of tells me that there is no wizard mode on this table. The code here is just like totally
Spoilers.
empty.
Ah, hello.
Theoretically, you might defeat an enemy just by hitting
Time Lord.
the upper right sinkhole.
I'm the Doctor.
Today, this war.
There have been several other Doctor Who games, and none of them have been particularly good or relevant enough to even justify playing it because of the same issue in which Doctor Who just changes too much from season to season. There's kind of a VR game that might be alright. And then there was like a match 3 puzzle game that's on Steam, which seems really ridiculous.
I expected more.
There was Lego Dimensions that had lots of things in it, but one of the expansions of the Toys to Life toy Lego Dimensions, which no longer actually requires you to buy the toys because you couldn't find them even if you tried, was Doctor Who, which would have given you one TT game style Lego level for Doctor Who, I believe. I believe it was a Lego expansion. Part of the problem with Lego Dimensions is that some were just character skins if you bought these expensive toys and scanned in a RFID code that came with the toy, where others were more expensive and would give you an actual level.
Hello, sweetie.
And yeah, it wasn't a kind type of offering for kids, because you potentially are paying $300 or $400 for a single video game. Whereas if you play Lego Dimensions now, you just can unlock, I think, pretty much all the content for free because they abandoned it because it didn't sell and it wasn't going to sell.
Are you coming? All aboard the crazy train. Let's try that again.
Yeah, I feel like this launcher is trying to be a lot like the Neon section of Circus Voltaire. It's so weird that the ball just travels that way. There's one wizard goal down. Yep, I tried there.
I'll go see what Daniels is up to and stab at this.
So that top left area that lights up is supposed to be about the Vastra Narada, and I don't think it actually does anything. Can we cheat here? I mean, we could put on ball control. Let's see if what we're missing, because obviously we are missing something. Now theoretically, ball control should work perfectly, and arguably this is about the best I have ever seen it work.
How fast can you run?
Let's see.
Great men are forged in fire.
So if we land here, that's not enough.
Physician, heal thyself.
So what do we have to hit to defeat the Cybermen? I think to activate the Cybermen, you have to accurately...
I call myself the Doctor.
go through the multi-ball, probably, for Cybermen. So you probably don't want to pick the
Let's go.
Cybermen.
No time to waste.
No, that did move to a new villain.
Are you coming? All aboard the crazy train.
I'm noticing that you have to hit them all to light them up, and that gets you the Weeping Angel element. There could have been hologram technology certainly in this too. Like there totally would have been, could have been hologram technology to change the playfield more. And honestly, I kind of feel like the design of let's see. So how many of these do we have to hit? Because you can't really hit them from behind or from the side. So that's the
Cyberman in the
Cybermen
side pocket.
jackpot, and now we have what seems launching into the TARDIS. Doesn't seem.
To hell, what you have? Come on out, Missy.
So you have to do that
Come for
twice.
my army or just for me?
And so now
Come
she's
for my army or just for me?
interesting.
Impress me if you can.
Special is lit.
Impress me if you can.
I don't know how you're supposed to get
To
to her.
hell, what you
Who
have?
needs the woman when you can have...
I guess you just had to hit it hard enough.
Why can't
To
we be
hell, what you
friends?
have? Get back.
You're...
And see, we're hitting Missy and sinking the
Have you
ball.
grown tired? Need a nap?
Now we're down
Dead
to.
is the new sexy.
See, hitting her doesn't seem like it's doing anything. And it seems like that shield.
Why can't we
To
be
hell, what you
friends?
have? Goodbye, Missy. Send my regards to
I'll go see
Russell.
what Jackals is up to. Shall we
See, my
tango, waltz,
Finger
foxtrot,
is
or
getting
river
really
dance?
tired.
Miss me? You do quite a bit.
Just trying to push the ball as high as possible.
Oh, old familiar places.
We're slowly
It's a
spelling
roller coaster.
the oldest question in time
You're getting old, Doctor.
in the galaxy,
You're getting old,
which
Doctor.
is
That was old as time.
like that's the ultimate like return of Gallifrey is that they
I'll
are
go see
trying
what
to get
Jackals is up to.
Gallifrey seems to be
If it
trying
isn't
to,
you,
or in the universe, that's the oldest question in the universe. Gallifrey is trying to get the Doctor to
guess this makes us even.
say his name, which
Why
is a
can't we
secret.
have
one?
The Doctor Who's real name that
Goodbye,
only
Missy.
supposed to-
Catch you later.
is only supposed to say it to.
Let's get
like
this
his
over
wife.
with.
Balls are going all over the
Let's
place.
get this over with.
Let's just really play.
Let's get
skip
this
some
over
ball.
with.
Like even the game is getting tired.
Can't win. Just accept it for once.
Like I have no idea how I'm supposed to be winning here. There it says the oldest question in the universe is the Doctor's name. There is a crack in the universe that Gallifrey was peering through
If it isn't
they were trying to
you,
convince
Laurie.
him
Sorry,
to-
wrong doctor.
to. Interesting. They made a fourth wall breaking joke there. Hugh Laurie played not a Doctor Who doctor. He played Dr. House in the TV show House.
It wasn't me who ran, Doctor.
Yeah,
Next trick.
honestly, some of this might actually be somewhat how
I keep it locked for a reason. It's a time machine, not a miracle worker. Try the key next time.
like how Gallifrey finally did try to come back, although I'm not sure Gallifrey actually did ever come back.
Hostiles remain. 12.
A good hunter waits.
Why did it think the ball was drained? There, it didn't
I
drain.
expected more.
And so we're just kind of back to where we were.
A good hunter waits.
25 bonus
Good
times
hunter
bonus.
waits.
See, some of those animations in the background are definitely trying to imply that this is like the other Doctor Who table, but it's not as good. No, it isn't. And one thing I'll say is that the previous table probably isn't
From
trying to
Hell's
emulate
Heart,
any
I stand
season of
quarters.
Doctor Who or any episode of Doctor Who.
Ta-ta for now.
So this is a table
Let's
that
try that again.
honestly might be very similar in that if there was a hacked mod here that had some footage, had some musical sounds and callouts, that would be great. In a funny way, since you know the doctors are always going to regenerate, you need a screen on the table so that a updated patch can include the new doctor, whatever the new doctor looks like, every time there is a new doctor. Even if you're not really adding any more code other than that, that would be very much appreciated. And then you would kind of like that. You'd like it to potentially let you choose which doctor you want to see or play as at the beginning of each ball or each game, or randomly apply a doctor.
Dead is the new sexy.
Send my regards to Rassilon.
One of the issues, I would say, one of the episodes of Doctor Who
I'll go
that
see what
caught my
Dad Rose is up
attention
to.
is at a certain point the Doctor gets cloned and he has this like daughter, and it's just in one episode. Turned out, and I just recently found this out, that episode, the lady playing the Doctor was actually this actor's actual daughter. So he basically was able to make the actor's daughter the character's daughter, and nobody ever did anything with it, and she disappeared. And there was a couple instances of that. I guess this floating top part never changes. That's boring. That's boring as all get out. So how would you score Starving Angels? Let's see. Complete the angels at the spot targets here, 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 and here, and here, and here, and here. Completing the first time scores the Weeping Angels worth 1 million points. Second time scores Angels Aware worth 2 million. Third time Ferocious Angels, when Ferocious Angels is scored Specials Lit. And so all 5 of those lights really are just some kind of bonus reward. There are no modes on this table. Completing Angels to score the special. Completing Angels a 4th in each subsequent time scores Starving Angels worth 4 million. Which the idea that the angels are starving to death is an interesting twist, I suppose. There are 2 great scoring opportunities to activate at the O ramp. Oh, so that is the O ramp. I could not hit that 53 times even if I tried. So this is the playfield multiplier indicator. And yeah, clearly whoever designed this table didn't really care too much about Doctor Who. And I'm not even a big Doctor Who fan. You could find much better Doctor Who's. But why is there no Fez on the table? Because the whole Fez was a in gag. Why aren't the companions here? Yeah. Why aren't we doing more with the Daleks and the Cybermen? Why is the Vastru Narada even included? Why aren't they referencing actual episodes? At 10 shots, regeneration starts. It's 6-second timer. Before the timer runs out, shoot the W scoop, H lane, and O to score 10 million points and reset the timer for 6. Regeneration ends when the timer runs out or the O ramp is completed. Another great feature on the table is the Zygon revealed. I think those are the rubber looking monsters. So, one key to getting a high score is in Doctor Who Master of Time is the multi-ball battle. Start the multi-ball, lock 2 balls in the TARDIS. At the beginning of the game, the lock is lit. After the first multi-ball, lock must be lit by hitting the TARDIS doors. Interesting. So no other way to lock it. You'd think there would be a second way. Locking the ball scores 100,000. When the second ball is locked, the Cyberman wall rises. Here to show 5 spot targets, which those spot targets suck because there's a high chance of the ball bouncing down the center lane and draining out. Completing 3 hits to each of the Cyber Scout spot targets to start the multi-ball battle. First time multi-ball is activated, hitting a target scores a hit to that target and the adjacent target. During subsequent multi-ball activations, hitting a target only scores a hit to that target. They had to dumb it down, obviously. Once all 5 Cyberman Scout targets have been completed, the Cyberman walls will lower and the boss targets rise. In the old table, and we'll see this in a second, there was only 3 scoops that you had to hit, compared to 5 standing targets. 3 boss targets rise, and I have no idea how they would actually rise on an actual table like that. That seems unlikely that you could do that with actual rubber figurines. You could certainly do it like the Canyon Corral table and just have pop-up drop-down targets come out of the table. That would be fine. Or you could just have optical sensors and holograms. Hologram technology. There was this robotic dog named Spot in the old Doctor Who. Feels like he should show up. He has shown up a little bit in previous tables. He should be referenced at least in the video. Let's see. 3 boss targets rise, corresponding to the 3 enemies on the display. What the boss targets that is shot will determine the starting jackpot level. The jackpot levels for the Cyberman are for 40,000, Cyber Lieutenant 45,000, and Cyber Leader for 50,000. This is just the same scoring idea and concept as the previous table. Missy is for 100 million, Missy for 200 million, and Missy for 300 million. So this is a table that once again wants you to just star multi-ball over and over again. When the Missy jackpots begin, all 7 villains lit in the Cyberman wall rises. To lower the wall, shoot the Missy multi-ball targets, completing the Cyber Scout spot targets. Cyber Scout spot targets must be completed when the Missy jackpot is at 100,000 twice. Blah 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 blah. And the force field magnet activates, which that's not something that that I think should exist either. If Missy is the active multi-ball target, the force field turns on for 1 second, then off for 4 seconds. When the ball is lost, the jackpot value goes down 1 level. The multi-ball battle ends when only 1 ball is left in play. If multi-ball ends before a jackpot is scored, reactivate is started. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Each villain focuses on the Doctor's attention to a different part of the playfield, advancing progress and scoring toward the table feature. The villain is lit each time a new ball is played. When the ball is plunger, use the flippers to select the villain. Villain is also lit when Fury is scored. Completing all 7 villains scores 20 million points. The idea that the Doctor is furious is not particularly well delivered with any of the actors. If anything, I think the Doctors in the reboot series more depict him as sad and sometimes taken to the brink of anger, but the idea that he's just furious always or ever is kind of ridiculous. It would be interesting to see if an actor could naturally have the Doctor be furious. There's plenty of times when the Doctor does give kind of smug, indignant speeches and acts like he's mad or furious, but honestly, almost always the Doctor comes off as just preaching to a bunch of kids and comes off as preachy and uninterested and unconcerned. Or you have a fun Doctor regeneration and then they don't get preachy and angry. And I think the fun Doctor regenerations make more sense because it's a kid show. So theoretically, I suppose there might be a way that you could start the multi-ball and it would start all 7 of the enemies. And there might be something to that. See, and the story's confusing here because you have this scenario where there was this Pandorica and a group of enemies work together to capture the Doctor and lock him into Pandorica and stop the universe from being destroyed because of the crack in the universe. But then that kind of gets undone, and then the next season the crack in the universe is used for some other reason. Like, the whole story, it really sounds like a whole bunch of gibberish. And so that was 2016. This is 1992. So you're talking 14 years later. Why does this table look newer or more colorful? It doesn't look newer. Oh, I won't make that claim. But why is this more colorful? Sure, if you were going to reskin the old table for modern Doctors, you wouldn't just have a bunch of Daleks and the Master. But you could easily have reskinned this for Missy, and the Daleks could have been more colorful. You could have easily had each of these Doctors be replaced with a different Doctor, except for the fact that there aren't 7 new Doctors, which is not a big deal. You just kind of get rid of some of these shots being directly connected to a Doctor. Over here you have this whole escape standing targets, which in all fairness, that's way too many standing targets, and they're kind of in a bad position, but that's something different. You have a TARDIS here that is a pop-up to the in lane, and then you have a loops here for a ramp of some kind of spaceship that we really don't see any spaceships, which honestly in Doctor Who you kind of don't see that. You have a W here instead of a sinkhole, an H here that goes up that way, and then an O here. So it is basically the same shots. Over here it says repair instead of Doctor, and then you have the ramp over here, and then you have pop-up bumpers that are not representing Daleks, so that's a smart movement in that direction. And then you have a sinkhole on the left and a sinkhole on the right instead of a loop that shoots the ball back down towards the center. And you have a lights lock center shot. So it would have probably made more sense for there to have been a loop that then hits a post and makes the ball lock if you go to the left, and hits a post and makes the ball lock if you go to the right, and locks the ball if you hit the TARDIS. The TARDIS being more front and center is not a terrible thought. And then scoops pop up later here. And you have a lot of lights. A lot more lights for a lot more shots. A lot of jewels. and 7 doctors. You could have easily had, well, with the War Doctor, you could have gone back further. So you could have had the Western TV Doctor, who's, I think, the 8th Doctor, and brought him back. You could have gotten 7 and 6 and 5 to get up to 7 if you needed to get to 7. But you kind of don't need to do that at all. You could have had all of these doctors as options, and it just would require more code. And this table clearly has more code going on with it. Let's before we even start, see what wizard goals we're trying to hit. I didn't even really like this game. There's like no video mode as far as I can tell. We'll have to go back and look at the instructions, but it does seem like there's no video mode. Why is it not? Why does the new Doctor Who not play that sound? Well, why can't I pick between potentially 13 doctors? Even if they're just going to give you like a mystery reward or a skill shot or something. It's either a complete lack of care or understanding about Doctor Who that would have created the new Doctor Who table, or is just an utter despise for the old Doctor Who, because I don't know why you would make a new table that is just a worse version of the old table. And see, I guess I was wrong. This does have some standing targets. They're just targets. They're not Cybermen, so that was a nice improvement. Some of their ideas are good. Like some of the visual aesthetics are good, but the programming's bad. And doesn't that say something crazy that the makers of the emulator in Pinball Arcade suck at programming enough that they can't make a good table themselves? I mean, I'm sure they never really planned on making a table, and they were hoping just to emulate tables for the rest of their lives, but they should have had some ideas. I have ideas. I could at the very least have played every single table here and stolen some ideas. I would definitely be going through like the list of every single episode and every single villain, and I'd just be going through a Doctor Who Wikipedia and saying, hey, let's get a reference here. Even the match animation is just the same match animation, which, yeah, that could be a nice throwback, but it also doesn't feel like you've added anything new to it. Why is that not a newer version of the console instead of the like first version of the console? Why isn't there a reference to the swimming pool in the TARDIS or the library? Like, there was a whole episode where they played around the idea of being lost in the TARDIS and it being this giant reconfiguring facility that you don't see usually, because nobody ever the camera never goes past the entrance. Yeah, we're not getting the destroy from the Daleks. We're not getting the exterminate. I mean, it is an insult to Doctor Who fandom. I have to assume that a Doctor Who fan would agree with me, as I am only a now lapsed Doctor Who fan that doesn't really care about it at all. table's too easy to start a multi-ball on, but it's not really a problem because then the multi-ball itself is too difficult. If anything, they kind of failed to fix that issue on the new table too. And there totally needs to be a spinner of some sort. And maybe a jump, a ramp, something interesting. So when you look at this table, there's a whole bunch of empty center space, so putting something there would have been nice. Moving some shots around so it takes up more of the table. And they made some basic changes to the old table. But see, like this table has all the doctors. I forgot I was supposed to be playing. It's got all 7 doctors on the back glass of that, and they light up when they've been lit. Why not have all, at the time, 10 or 12 doctors on the back glass? There's actually a very, very nice image that could have been used there. Yeah. And why not fix that so it doesn't immediately drain a ball out during the multi-ball? Maybe you don't have the screaming of the Daleks. There's one wizard going. Like, there's actual call-outs on this table too. There's none of that. It's actually telling you what to shoot for. This is way better playable. Like, sure, it's old and antiquated, and had they reskinned this with new graphics and not changed anything else and not changed the audio, I might have some complaints, but seeing the alternative option of just making something that was way less quality. And remember, it's worth pointing out that this table is $10 on its own. It's never bundled with anything else. So you will inherently, if you want to play the new Doctor Who table, have to pay $10 for it. I bet it never goes on sale. I bet a big portion of it, of its sales, go directly into the BBC's pocket. Arguably, the BBC being allowed to be this monopolistic entity sponsored by the UK government has led to a lack of competition, a lack of care, a lack of interest in actually making good quality products. That also seems like that is how a lot of Doctor Who fans kind of feel now too with the TV series.
You're getting old, Doctor.
I'm as old
It's
as
just
time.
not doesn't care. This is also way too dark.
Let's
Like,
go,
Doctor
all
Who
right?
shouldn't be this dark.
Let's try that again.
And all the DirectX 11 versions of tables have had a problem
time to
of
waste.
being
Come
a little
on.
too bright. So it's really weird to run into one
God's sake!
that's too dark.
Gotcha! I
can't think it would be too slow to make somebody select the Doctor at the beginning of a ball.
Great men are forged in fire.
Hands up!
Because plenty of other
Hurry along,
tables
we
have
have to
done
catch
that,
Missy.
and that hasn't caused problems.
I don't have anything to lose.
For my next trick,
No time to waste. Come along.
See, that did seem like that spun or changed the orientation of the sonic screwdriver, but the sonic screwdrivers don't play any role. They're just visually there.
Are you coming? All aboard the crazy train.
I've come to help.
All aboard the crazy train, I don't think is something that's
Let's go. all
actually
right?
said. Maybe it's said on like one episode of Doctor Who and that's it. Which, yeah, half of these quotes don't feel like Doctor Who.
Hurry along. We have to catch Missy.
Did they literally not even have the license for the music? That's why you
Let's
have this
go, all right?
generic
Come
sci-fi
along.
music playing,
No time to waste.
and it abruptly ending and starting over every time you lose a ball.
Spoilers.
Honestly, I would prefer if they had just made an old mechanical table and reskinned it. Like, that would have kind of worked for me too, if they just took something that had like 4 pop-up bumpers, reskinned it with 4 different Daleks, and that was all you were doing. I probably, if they were going to do something like that, would expect them to make a solid-state table also.
Need a few
I
quarters?
expected more. I expected more.
I'll go
Hurry
see
along,
what
we have to
Davros
catch
is up
Missy.
to.
Yeah, they're not adding anything to this table. They're taking away things. Let's just go back here and let's see. Like, if we were to go back to Central Park and look at Central Park as a table, if those 8 standing targets, or how many is it? Is it 10? Yeah, 10 standing targets. Get that up to 13 and you've got I think all the doctors that would have existed at that time. So each one of those standing targets could have represented the Dalek, a doctor, and you could have had one line of dialogue play each time one of those standing targets hit. You'd make those 4 pop-up bumpers the Daleks, or you make one of them the Daleks and you make one of them a Cyberman and one of them a Silence, and I don't know who you'd put as your 4th there, really, as an enemy. Like, you kind of need 3 pop-up bumpers just between the Silence, the Weeping Angels. Yeah, you can throw in the Weeping Angels, they're good too. I think the last effort to make the Weeping Angels particularly solidified as bad guys is that they did end up kind of ruining 2 of the companions' lives. But yeah, that's worse than any of these Stern tables we've seen at all.
I'm
I
tied
mean,
to the
let's
track
just
and I can't get up.
let's just think here and look at Cactus Canyon again as a random pick. Like, you have 4 pop-up bumpers. Those could have been Silence Daleks. You have this beer thing that could have been a TARDIS. You have a ramp here that could have been teleporting to a different time. You have a sinkhole here for multi-ball. That could have been something. Actually, there's kind of a lot here that you'd have to really think about to make a Doctor Who table around, but you could theme it. You could easily replace this with a TARDIS and have the TARDIS slightly to the side. The ramps themselves would be the problem, that you'd have to go to different planets or do other things. You'd want like missions where you pick up companions or discover new companions. You'd want way more code. One thing that also think about is you could have taken this design of this table, and let's say instead of this being a pinball, this being a pinball with a TARDIS toy on top of it. That way it still swings and gets hit, and then the TARDIS flies all around in space. And then you have back here targets for different kinds of enemies to hit. And then you have over here a loop that does something into like a black hole instead of a toilet. And you have a loop here that loops around and it stops the ball on Earth. And so maybe you don't have a TARDIS, then you have something else. Here you can easily just have Spot, the robotic dog, instead of the doghouse, which means the two modes that exist also for this game where you're shooting Toast or running away from Spot, you can one-to-one reanimate that for Spot and just have Spot go crazy. You could easily replace Missy with the main bad guy here. The inventions don't fully make sense with Doctor Who, but different companions being collected to start a mode would make a lot of sense, or different sonic screwdrivers would make a lot of sense. You could easily have a sonic screwdriver over here, a sneak-in shot up there. The phrase timey-wimey was never mentioned here in the game. That should have been a phrase. You could have a pop-up here that could represent anything, or you could just have multiple TARDISes in general on the table. Yeah. I think you start with something like this and you have just a world of opportunities to make a good table, and it's just not there. Even if you like try to compare it to something like Gorgar, which is an incredibly simplistic table, there's more spelling, more here. Like, again, if you were going to make an electromechanical version of Doctor Who, some stand-up targets that spelled Doctor and some that spelled Who might work, but at least this table has a spinner. It has top lane overlays, and there's none of that in the game. It has a magnet that holds the ball. It has a end of ball bonus, and your focus is just to get that bonus. It has some standing targets. They're just 1, 2, 3 targets. I feel like there should be some kind of Santa Claus Christmas, Father Christmas mode or feature in Doctor Who, because there's almost always some kind of Christmas episode for Doctor Who, and that's true for even the old Doctor Who table. There should have been a Santa Claus mode that happened at some point, even as an Easter egg. Well, I suppose what that just boils down to, and I had already said it, as FarSight Studio and them claiming Williams, I don't know why they're claiming Williams worked on it. Let's see if we can actually find out
You're getting
some reason
old,
to that.
Doctor.
I'm as old as time.
Let's see, her eyes glow, and I don't even think her eyes ever glow in the TV show. Let's look at the legal notices. TARDIS, Dalek, Cybermen, and K9 word marks and devices are trademarks of the British Broadcasting Corporation. Let's see. So, yeah, I don't know why they're claiming Williams built this table. Because none of the legal notices really point that out. Let's look at the leaderboards, I suppose. And what would be interesting You notice that it's the same person, by the way, that has the highest score on almost every leaderboard, because he's just hacked it, clearly. 58 billion compared to the next highest being 10 billion. I wouldn't be surprised if even the 10 billion is fairly hacked and wrong, because quickly, before you're even in the top 30, you're down to 3 top 50. You're into the 4 billion mark. Whereas my score got me 135 million, which puts me at 7,050th position, which also, I think, really highlights how few people overall have played this table. And this table probably came out in 2016. I seriously doubt it came out like a year ago and was created by Williams in 2016. Although maybe they released it on cell phone versions first and then eventually ported it over, but I doubt that's the case. I am in 22nd position weekly and playing this on a Tuesday, so I wouldn't be surprised if not that many people play it, because I almost assume that people buy this, play this, and then never play it again. 127 people have played it on a Tuesday. And then monthly, I'm in the 137th position, playing this on the 27th day of the month, which would make me think there should be, for a licensed game like this, it should be somewhere in the 600 or 700 number of players minimum, but I'm not sure we're really going to hit that. Maybe we will. You can see this is like an incredibly tight scoring game too, because there's just no variety to it, and that's probably a great subtle way to know the table is bad, when all your high scores are within 10 points of each other, or a lot of your high scores are within 10 points of each other. Because I imagine it wouldn't be it shouldn't be that way, and it hasn't been that way for a lot of other tables. So on the 27th of the month, it got up to 773, which, okay, that's not a lot. One thing I wanted to check out here before we end, and we should just end because there's not going to be a lot to say, is if I was going to look at challenges here and see, Williams challenge would not include the Doctor Who. This one wouldn't include Doctor Who. This one does include Doctor Who, but that's the old Doctor Who and the new Doctor Who. So what I would think is the end of seasons happened as far as season 6, and I don't think that they're getting any Kickstarter for season 7 or any more licenses. And so the latest tables to have been added would have been Indy 500, 8-Ball Deluxe, Doctor Who, Bone Busters, Jack's Open, Centigrade 37, Al's Garage Band, Gladiators, Doctor Who, Master of Time, which is the only one that's not claiming a trademark, interestingly enough, Cactus Jacks, and Swords of Fury, which also kind of highlights that they are scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as tables go. Yeah, I almost want to just jump into TX Sector, the table I've hated the most, and I don't even really remember at this point, to see if Doctor Who is worse than this. Let's see. Well, no, this does look better. Even though the angles on this are obviously kind of crazy, and this probably is a table that plays horrible, there's at least, I think, more ambition here as far as a table to actually have a game happening. And this is the table that introduced the idea of the ball disappearing and reappearing somewhere else, I believe. Which that happens on other later tables obviously all the time, so it's not much of a selling point. But the audio here is more interesting. It's more upbeat. The table, while it's a hideous monochrome of red as far as a theater, as far as a color palette decision, it's still not pitch black like Doctor Who. And while this table may not have a ton of stuff to do, it, I think, still may have more than Doctor Who has to do. And part of that is you just shouldn't make a table with 9 shots on it. This table here has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe 6, 7. Yeah, it's about 7, maybe as low as 5 important ones. So yeah, you have to follow the blinking lights to know where the shots are supposed to go. Nope, that's better. Even the table I pretty much hated the most is still better than Doctor Who. Well, that's a shame. And I know there's a bit of a controversy around Ghostbusters, but I imagine we might be able to play it in a virtual environment and not run into some of the manufacturing problems that I think they were complaining about for Ghostbusters. And it's weird that we're getting the premium version of this table when almost certainly some of the other Stern tables in the 2000 era would also have been premium. And we'll have to look at Pinball FX3 and see if there are any old tables that are being emulated there, or at Pinball FX2 and see if there are any tables being emulated there that were blatantly missing from Pinball Arcade. I think it may be a little bit of both. We may have tables missing on Pinball FX3 and 2 that Pinball Arcade at one time did have the license to, and we may have new tables on Pinball FX2 and 3 that never made it to Pinball Arcade. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.